To you, Clive.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name's Clive Palfrey. I'm a safety advisor for Seafood Cornwall Training. And what we're going to talk about is sort of general safety today. Firstly, who are we? Well, Claire's touched on it once already, but we'll just go through it. Seafood Cornwall Training, a training provider in Cornwall that train fishermen with sea fish training, such as first aid, firefighting, survival at sea, that sort of stuff. But they're also trained to teach RYA courses. They help skippers with skippers tickets and tuition and stuff like that. And we also do different projects. And one of the projects we do is the safety project. The safety project is in partnership with the CFPO, funded by Trinity House, Seafarers Charity and FAS. Okay, so we're going to sort of talk about that today. So we go to the next slide. And then the next one, please. So this is sort of what we're going to talk about. This is our sort of bag. You know, we cover all sorts of safety, life-saving appliances, safety paperwork, risk assessments and advice to go with risk assessments, safe working practices. We visit vessels and do pre-MCA advice. And then we also do sort of health and well-being and advice and referrals. So if we see anyone in need or somebody comes to us with a problem, then we sort of try and help them with that with some general advice. And if not, then we'll refer them to the appropriate people. Next slide, please. So what we're going to talk about first, we're going to talk about medicals. Okay, so as you are probably aware, on the 30th of November last year, every fisherman in the UK should have had and passed his medical to go to sea. There are two types of medical. The one on the screen is the ML5. This is for inshore fishermen that do less than 72-hour trips. These medicals can last up to 5 years if you get a full bill of health, and they're slightly easier to pass than the ENG1. Next slide, please. So this is the ENG1. This is for fishermen that are a bit more offshore, that are doing more than 72-hour trips. An ENG1, I think you can go anywhere in the world with, where an ML5 is for UK waters. But it only lasts 2 years, and it's slightly more in-depth medical than an ML5. Okay, they're both about the same price. They're about 120 quid. It does vary, but I haven't heard of many less than 100 quid. So they're around about that price. Next slide, please. So in came the medicals, as I say, 30th of November last year, and it's been a bit of a U-turn. So the MCA have got a consultation out for scrapping medicals for fishermen, existing fishermen on under 10 metre vessels. So you can go on the government website, and please do encourage yourselves and other fishers to get involved and really put some input into the consultation of this and whether you think it should be scrapped or not. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we move on to safety folders. Next slide, please. Oh, that's a new picture to me. So the crew involved in safety folders. So if we move on to the next slide, please. So a safety folder, it's a live document. We really got into this in the industry 2 or 3 years ago because it became an MCA requirement. Well, it's more than an MCA requirement. You know, a safety folder, it carries a risk assessment. It's got important links to safety and the safety of the fishing vessel and the crew. And we believe that the crew need to be involved in this process, and the minimum involvement of a crew on a fishing boat that he's read and sort of signed up to a safety folder and a risk assessment. But I think that, you know, they should be involved in helping write this. These are the guys that are on deck. It's their safety. The more involved they are with the paperwork, I think the more we all understand about safety and the paperwork that goes with it. Next slide, please. So in your safety folder, this is just the general content start point of the safety folder. You should have a risk assessment. Your crew should have read that risk assessment and signed up to it, you should review risk assessment annually. All right. You want vessel operating procedures, crew induction and safety certificates. So we need to know that the crew have got all the right qualifications to be aboard the vessel, but also, you know, what else do we need to know? We need to get them to do an induction so they know their way around the vessel. But we also need their personal information, you know, their next of kin, stuff like that. Okay, vessel safety certificates, just the general stuff, the certificate of registry, the MCA certificate, that sort of stuff. The insurance, the MCA are asking to see your personal indemnity insurance for your vessel now, so that your crew are insured. Those sort of bits of paperwork, emergency procedures paperwork, a record of regular monthly drills. That's the one we come across as not really being done very much in the industry. So we're meant to record a regular monthly drill. Doesn't matter what size of the boat, whether you're single-handed or you've got 10 crew. And it's something that the industry is struggling to do, and certainly to do it proper. We're meant to go and do a proper drill on deck, and then we're meant to call that information. Okay, and then we've got stability information. So if you've got a large boat with a stability book, then that needs to be reviewed if you alter anything, or at least once every 5 years. And then if you've got a small boat, then your boat will have a roll test or an incline test or something along those lines, depending on the type of boat and the method of fishing. And then finally, Lola and Pula. So Lola is your lifting equipment, and the regulations and the paperwork that go with that. And Pua is your mechanical equipment, and the regulations and paperwork that go with that. So that's just a really brief look at what we need in a safety folder, and that's a like minimum requirement. Can we go to the next slide, please? So the reason we need this sort of stuff is because it's a really, really dangerous fishing industry. So as you can see on this, we've had 59 fatalities in the last 10 years. The fishing industry is 100 times higher, more dangerous than it is for those fatalities are for the general UK workforce. So the data shows that the annual mortality rate hasn't changed in fishing. So our boats are getting more modern, okay? And we think safer, but actually we've still got the same fatality rate. So maybe we're not quite getting it all right, okay? There are hundreds of severe injuries over the last 10 years, and there are loads of near misses and small injuries that don't even get recorded, that we don't even know that they're happening and what's going out there. And then a couple of other statistics that I pulled out: 50% of people that go overboard don't survive. Really, really big statistic. 50%, 50-50. If you go overboard, whether you're going to come back alive. And then the RNLI get called out to a fishing boat every single day. I think that's a huge statistic. That doesn't mean somebody's died, but it does mean that there's a serious incident. You know, it could be that they've just broken down, or an injury or something like that. But I mean, there are a lot of RNLI stations around this country. The fact that one is out every day to a fishing boat sort of shows that we're not really going in the right direction with that sort of safety. Next slide, please. So what causes the fatalities? Let's look at that side of it. We've just looked at how dangerous the industry is. And these are just some of the reasons of those fatalities. Drowning from mob, man overboard, is our biggest killer. Okay, that's how most of these fatalities come from. Capsizing due to snagging your fishing gear on the seabed, or a sudden loss of stability. Overloading, so that could be overloading with fish, but it's probably more likely to be overloading with fishing gear. Poor maintenance in general, not looking at your engine room and checking your pipe work in the engine room. Pipe perishes, and then the water starts to come in. Lack of safety equipment in general. So we've got a very strict set of regulations now, what each boat needs, which is a minimum requirement from the MCA. We can add more safety equipment to that, and we probably should look at our individual boats and what we think we should need. But we're also failing as an industry in certain places just to keep up with what the MCA are asking for. Sinking from a water ingress, well, that goes back to poor maintenance. Collision or grounding. To be fair, they are getting rarer with the technology is increasing, like AIS and stuff like that, generally linked to fatigue, the ones that we do have, tiredness, people falling asleep at the wheel and going aground, and fire. And luckily, fire is quite rare on fishing boats, but obviously very, very dangerous. Next slide, please. So I found this. I was looking around the internet, sort of trying to create this PowerPoint, and this is from America. And it was I just thought it was really interesting. It's not just a British problem, but so during, was it 2000 and 2016, 204 commercial fishermen died from falling overboard in the USA. None of them were wearing a life jacket. So it's the same as over here. You know, the water's cold. If we enter the water quickly and accidentally not wearing a life jacket, then the consequences can be quite high. And the other statistic that I pulled out of this, 59% of man overboards are unwitnessed. Now that's something that's new to me. I haven't seen that statistic before, but I thought it's quite an interesting talking point. That comes down to, I'd imagine, fishermen working on the boat on their own, single-handed fishermen, or lone working, where they're out on deck on their own, where the other crew aren't. They're either in the wheelhouse or in the accommodation or whatever. And their prevention tips are exactly the same as ours. You know, wear a life jacket, use a man overboard alarm, they call it. We call it a personal locator beacon. I think every fisherman should be wearing a life jacket where it's practical, and with that, you should have a personal locator beacon. Okay, practice man overboard retrieval. We talked about that emergency drills earlier on, so that hasn't changed. And take a marine safety class. Well, we've got training courses, you know, at Seafood Cornwall Training and other trainers around the country. There's nothing wrong with going back and doing a refresher, every few years. At the moment, the law doesn't state that it's in this country, so you do these safety courses once, but I feel that going back and having a refresher is certainly not going to hurt, is it? Okay, can we move to the next slide, please? So, man overboard, this is our biggest problem. We can actually link the way people fall overboard to different types of fishing. So, next slide, please. So, as you can see, it's a great photo. As you can see, there's a hole cut in the transom in the back of the boat there where the pots can go out. So, this is called a self-shooting system on a potter. You go in the wheelhouse, you shoot the pots out through the transom door, and the system should shoot itself. That's the principle. But what we find is fishermen get involved in that, whether their system's not particularly good or for whatever reason. And we lose about 4-5 fishermen a year just to this one type of accident. So they get involved with a self-shooting system, and they end up getting shot themselves with the fishing gear. So it's a real big risk at the moment. Okay, next slide, please. So scallop dredging, I don't know if you can quite make it out, but that's the rail of a boat. That's quite a big fishing boat. That rail will be over 1 meter high. So if the fisherman stood next to the rail, then it's up, sort of touching his chest, nice and safe. But it's got a conveyor belt. You can see where all the scallops and the stones have dropped in the conveyor belt. And if you just look on the left-hand side of the picture, you can see the crew's arm there. So the crew's got off the deck, which is a nice and safe place with a nice high rail, and he's now stood on the conveyor belt. So he's now unsafe. It's a nice fine day there in that photo. But if you can imagine, the boat's rolling, it's a bit fresh. What's he going to hold on to? Well, there's nothing to hold on to other than the fishing gear. And where's the fishing gear going to end up? Back outside the boat. It's quite likely to end up with it. Next slide, please. Beam trawling. So if you look at the picture on if we're getting a bit technical now, but this picture on the left, they call this the horse's head, okay? And if you look in the middle of the horse's head, just slightly to the right, you can see some heavy chain holding a block. That's called a quick release. Now, we have lost 3 fishermen in 3 years where that chain's parted and it's landed and killed a crew. Just that one thing on one type of fishing, okay? So if we can make that area safer and where the crews stand, then obviously that is a preventable accident. Next slide, please. Trawling. So this is a nice modern trawler but what you can see by looking at it is it's got some net drums up high where it stores the nets. Okay, so when the fishing boat's fishing and it's working well, it's a very, very nice setup. But what happens is they get snag gear and they start standing up on the rail, which is the black line that's running around the boat between the green and the white, and then they're at risk of falling overboard. So when the method's working and they're stood on deck, they're nice and safe. But when they have a snag and they start standing, leaning outboard or standing on the rail, that increases their risk of man overboard. So all of these fisheries have got their own risks, but they're happening time and time again. They're preventable, and once you look into it, which we have, you can sort of see where these risks lie. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just a summary of what we've talked about. We've talked about, slightly touched on the medicals, just an update on where we are, and then we've looked at the safety folders, how the risk assessments, where the risks are linked to the methods of fishing. And basically, we're trying to send the message that, you know, safety is really, really important to us. We need to assess the risk. We need to involve the crew in that as much as we can, okay, to prevent accidents. Then the crew need to be wearing the correct PPE, so a life jacket, a PFD, the correct PPE, so if there is an accident, then they're as safe as can be. We need to think safer. We need to stop concentrating on what's happening elsewhere and just look at our safety first, okay? And then when we think we've got it all sussed, we need to assess again. We go back to the start and we assess again. So, you know, when do we assess? If we have a new crew, yeah, we'd go through the process again. New equipment would be good. Change of method of fishing. Lessons learned. We see an incident or an accident on someone else's boat or a near miss, and then can we alter our risk assessment? Can we make our safety procedures a bit safer? That's the message. That's all I've got to say. Hopefully, I was in time. All right.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Chris Whitty. Next slide, please. Absolutely brilliant. Really good. Thanks, Clive. So straight on to Rachel. I've been chatting away to Rachel over the last 2 weeks, but obviously half term, and that's what we know how that works. So Rachel is part owner at Amethyst Fishing and does a lot of administration. That I'm really happy to welcome you to the webinar, to the network, and hear a little bit about your story. Thank you so much.
Hiya. Hi everybody, I'm Rachel. Currently working in an office-based capacity in the family fishing business, and we're based down in Myler, which is near Falmouth down in Cornwall. So just a little bit of background information about me and the company. It all started, I think my dad is 5th generation or something, as he quite often boasts, in the fishing industry. And I mean, he's been doing it for his whole life. Started off with his dad and then took the leap to go alone. And when he met my mum fell into it as well. And she did all the paperwork side of it. And even, you know, things like making up gear. I've had stories told of when they were tying up mackerel lines in the kitchen and things like that. So anyway, so they started Amethyst Fishing Company, which is our business, in 2002. And we're predominantly scallop dredgers. That's the vessels that we've mostly had over the years. And that's now been going for over 20 years. I haven't come into it only recently. My background, I worked in law. So when I finished college and I left college, I went straight into an office, and I was in there for about 10 years, working my way up the ladder. And it got to a point actually where, after having children, the office, the work-life balance was quite inflexible, and of course the pressures of working in that sort of environment. And I struggled really to manage both. And I jokingly said to my dad one day, I see that he was struggling with the paperwork side of things as that's become more and more over the years. I said, "Oh, I'll come and work for you, Dad." And he went, "Oh, all right then." And I thought, "Oh, okay, this is actually happening." So I ended up in about 2017, after having my second baby, I left the solicitors and started working alongside my dad. And you know, we started off at the kitchen table, and then over the years it's grown, and we've got a little office and everything now, and although I'm working from home today, but yeah. And so at the same time as all of this going on, my then boyfriend from way back when started. He was out of work, found himself out of work, and Dad said, "Oh, come fishing." So he said, "I'll just tie you over for a couple of weeks." So he did. Well, that was, oh my gosh, when was that? 2008. So that was 16 years ago. And in that time, Tom's gone from crew to skipper, and he's skippered several boats. And then fast forward the 7 years that I've been involved in the company, Tom and I are now shareholders in Amethyst Fishing Company, and the ultimate plan will be for one day when Dad's ready to retire, we will take the company and carry it on. So our setup, we have 2 under 12 metre vessels and 1 under 10 metre vessels, and then a couple of smaller under 6 metres as well. One of the under 12 metre vessels, the Debbie V, which is named after my mum, we had built from scratch in around 2018, and that was constructed at a boatyard called Mashfords in Cornwall. And actually most of that, we had the hull built there, the hull, and then the rest of it, between Tom, my dad, and our team of crew, they built and finished the rest of the boat. And a lot of care and attention went into the build, and it's got lots of luxurious touches. So it's got bespoke oak-fitted kitchen, and the wheelhouse has all been made bespoke. Fitted shower room with toilet, washing facilities so they can wash their clothes on board, washer dryer, ice machine, conveyors, aircon, etc. The other under 12 vessel, the Lily Grace, was bought in 2013, and we actually bought it. It had another name, but it had already been changed. So of course it's not. You're allowed to change it again. And I was pregnant at the time, and my dad said, if you have a girl, we're going to call it after whatever you name the baby. So we had a girl. So the Lily Grace was named after our first child. Anyway, so that one again was a complete do-upper. We bought it, ripped it all out, transformed it into the more comfortable, practical vessel that it is now. And again, new conveyors, fitted shower rooms, washing facilities, everything's high spec. And then the under 10 metre vessel that we've not long purchased, Liberty, that was brought down from Hartlepool within the last month or two. And again, that's another project. So that's something that Tom's now, he's sort of taken a step back from the skippering, and this is going to be a project for him to work on, and then he will take it once it's all done and dusted. And we expect that will probably be fishing around the summertime. And then, as I said, we've got a couple of smaller under 6 metre vessels that are used for bass fishing or shellfish, whatever their licence permits. And also Dad's got a working boat, which he uses to catch oysters the traditional way, so sail powered, in the winter months when he's got time to do it. So with so many boats, and I've noticed in the short time that I've been involved for the last 7 years, there has been an increasing amount of paperwork required for each vessel, and it does take a team to run the business as a whole so that everything can run smoothly. So Dad's generally responsible for shoreside management, and he'll be there day in, day out, overseeing whatever's going on, if whether they're fishing or whether they're down doing gear changes or whatever. And Tom's assistant as well, especially now he's not fishing so much. And then my role is very much desk-based. Like I sort of call it behind the scenes, and it's always been and predominantly will probably always be very office-based. And I find my time split between admin type tasks and then accounts. So I do all the VAT returns, end of year sort of stuff, liaising with our accountant, invoicing, payments, banking, that sort of thing. And the admin side of things could cover any form filling. So, at the moment we're with one of the smaller boats, we have to renew the certificate of registry and the license, etc. So all of that's going on. And as part of that, there's the safety through the MCA. You have to get your safety certificate, so that will form part of that. I also do the catch declarations for the shellfish and the oysters to IFCA, and any health and safety paperwork. And as a company, we're very thorough when it comes to safety and preventative measures. Clive's already touched on the safety folder, and that's something that we use. And it's great actually for inputting and updating any health and safety information and features on each vessel, because they all slightly differ. Although in large, there is lots of things that you can just sort of carry through to each one. So my job is to prepare all the risk assessments and ensure that all the necessary paperwork needed for the skipper and crews are up to date. So that I go through when there's new crew, go through any certificates they've got, or if they haven't done any courses yet, then it's a case of signing them up through to Seafood Cornwall for those courses, because there's rules on what you have to have before you can start fishing, and then rules for what obviously you have to get in order to stay on or progress into whatever sorts of boats. So then also the safety folder, it lets you put in the information about the life-saving appliances on board, so life jackets, life rafts, flares, medical kits, etc. And you can put in all the serial numbers, any expiry dates, and every month they send you a checklist, and it will tell you if something's coming up for renewal or expiry. It will let you know, so you've got that, so you'll be like, right, that's what I need to make sure sorted, because next month that's going to expire. And then as a sort of real life example, just something that happened recently, we had the new vessel from Hartlepool, Liberty, we wanted to bring it to Cornwall to work on. In order to do that, the MCA wanted us to pass certain safety tests. So we had to, again, do things like put the safety folder together, so risk assessments, all the life-saving appliances, etc. And what we found actually is that because we're very good at keeping our paperwork in good order, this actually has helped us keep a very good rapport with the MCA, and they know when they come what to expect, and they know that they're gonna be presented with a very clear, well prepared safety thing. So actually then when they do come for inspections and things, they already have a positive impression on us as a company, and then they know that we're not ones to cut corners and that sort of thing when it comes to sea. So I very much describe my role as behind the scenes. I'm not out at sea, I'm not down on the belly when it comes to gear changes, but with the increasing amounts of paperwork and the number of vessels that we own, I'm told it's important to have someone like me to manage the admin side of the company. So that's basically what I do.
It's really good. What a great story. I just think that your pride in your family and your business shines through. And when people say to me, why do you work in fishing? Like, isn't it a load of blokes? Like, yeah, but they're all real people, really authentic, and there's such pride in their work. And it's not just men in fishing, there's loads of women as well. It's just great. What a great thing. Thank you so much. And more questions for you, I'm sure, in the Q&A, and other people here that do the bit of what you do, so you'll have loads in common. I really hope so. Let's go to Luena Paul. Luena works at the Fishing Animators, and is hopefully going to tell us a bit, and we will share it widely as we can, about grants that are available at the moment for safety improvements.
Hi, hopefully everyone can see that. Yeah, bro. Yeah, so I'm from Fishing Animateur Project. So it's basically delivered by Cornwall Rural Community Charity, and then we're financially supported by Trinity House, Seafarers, and Fishmongers Company. So that means that we can offer our services for free. Our main focus is helping the under 10 metre fleet with safety projects, but also those who lack IT or literacy skills required to apply for funds. And then, yeah, we help people access grants in England, Wales and Scotland when they're available. So just on the right there, you can see what we've achieved in 2023. We've just recently done our annual report. So we submitted 267 projects, and then combined project cost for all of them is 5.5 million, and then the grant part of that was 3.2 million. And then just at the bottom here, the funds that are currently available. So you've got Fisheries and Seafood Scheme, which the new round of that is opening hopefully at the end of the month. So FAS is just England, and typically it's used for smaller grants. That's from like £650 up to usually about £150,000. So there's lots of different measures in that one. I mean, hopefully the new fund will be similar measures. So for example, safety projects, that includes like vessel improvements, personal protective equipment, life-saving equipment like spare life jackets, net bins to organise decks, and autopilots, which are really helpful for single crewed vessels. Quality of catch projects, so insulated tubs, lobster tanks, and then adding value projects as well. So ice machines, cold freezer rooms, processing equipment like knives, scales, and vac packers to help people direct sell. And then we've got the UK Seafood Fund round 3. I've split it into 2 bits there because one part of it is for vessels, which is engine replacements and fleet modernisation, so to help increase energy efficiency and emissions. The engines, that is for the UK, so that's UK-wide. If you're looking, so you can upgrade your petrol or diesel engine if they're older than 2016 and get 50% grant rate on those. And then you can upgrade your engine of any age to a hybrid or electric engine, and that's 90% grant rate on them. And then the other part of the UK Seafood Fund there is for infrastructure and health and safety grants. So these are for larger projects with minimum project cost of 180,000 and going up to 600,000. So much bigger projects there. But that again is looking at health and safety. So things that could be included in that is like new winches and davits for ports and harbours, lighting, slipways, storage, ladders, a whole range of things. And the grant rates for that varies. So it's anything from 30% up to 80%. And with any of these funds, if we just go to the next slide, with all of those funds I've just talked about, they're all closing in March 2025. So that means they have to be claimed and completely finished by that time. So projects need to, get a wiggle on and start getting submitted and offer letters. I've just put the application process here because it's quite lengthy and it's got quite a few steps. So step 1 is we send you out our starter pack. You basically, it's just to get all of your information, and it's got a list of documents on there that we require. You send that back to us with your quotes, and then we can check your project's eligibility. So if we're not sure, or it's a project we've not done before, we can basically put together an expression of interest, and we send that in and get the outcome back. And then we help compose and submit your project. We act as the agent throughout the whole process, and that the MMO often require a lot of extra information, and this all happens over email. So it's quite handy for us just to be the main point of contact and do that on behalf of people. Then the next step is you've got to wait up to 2 months for an offer letter if your project is successful. And then once you've accepted that, you crack on with the project. One thing to note here is that there's loans available from ComSave Credit Union, and they offer loans, match funding loans to help you bridge that gap between getting that offer letter, paying for your project, and then receiving the grant money after. Because these are all done retrospectively, so you need to pay up front and then you claim back after. Step 3 is making the claim. So there's a bunch of documents you send us, which I've just listed here. And then after the project, there's often a post-project monitoring form that must be completed after a year or so, but they're quite straightforward. And then grants have all got liability on them and durability of operations that you need to be aware of. And then obviously these steps vary slightly depending on the funds. Just double check, said everything. Yeah, just quickly that all projects that include any changes to a vessel or also any additions to a vessel, we will need to do MCA engagement. So just to be aware of that as well. And then we've got a website which is fishinganimateur.co.uk, and we do a bi-monthly newsletter called Sea Change. So sign up to that one. We're sending the next one out is in March, which will have lots of information, hopefully about the FAST scheme opening, and the other schemes as well. And that's me.
That's lovely, really good. Thank you so much. So interesting to see that even it gets a bit complicated with the different pots of money for different things. So it's really great to have advice. And I think probably you would get calls and people would go, well, I can do it myself, but I'm just not sure which one. So like it's great to talk to somebody who you talk to the grant team all the time. So it makes a difference for people. And I know that I've sent fishermen to you, well, probably every day this week, and it's only Wednesday. So that's great. So people I've met. I'm so pleased. Thank you to all our speakers. I want to open the floor and bring everyone in. If you've got questions for the speakers, it was really helpful for us if you could put the questions in the chat or just put your hand up and I'll definitely come to you. I must change the view so I've got a gallery of everybody. At some point in the chat, if Kerry, if it's okay with people, we'll put the camera and get a picture of everybody, but we'll do it near the end if people have dropped out. Has anyone got any questions for Clive before he scoots off? I know he